The pen felt heavier than it should have in my hand. I was sitting in a small law office in downtown Knoxville, Tennessee. The kind of place that smelled faintly of old paper, black coffee, and time. The walls were lined with shelves full of thick binders and law books that looked like they hadn't been moved in years. Across from me sat Margaret Hayes, calm and composed, her reading glasses perched low on her nose as she watched me without rushing me. The documents were spread neatly across the polished wooden desk. Page after page of legal language. Words that would permanently change the shape of my life. I signed my name slowly. Mackenzie Jade Wilson. Once, twice, 3 times. Each stroke of the pen felt final. Not dramatic, not emotional, just irreversible. My phone buzzed on the desk. I already knew who it was before I looked. My sister, Haley. I inhaled slowly and pressed speaker. "Have you sent the house papers yet?" she asked, her voice tight, impatient, like this was an overdue package and not my entire future. I glanced down at the documents I had just signed, then at Margaret's steady eyes across from me. My voice came out calm, almost gentle. "From now on," I said, "you no longer have any right to interfere with that house." There was silence. Not awkward silence, not confused silence. The kind of silence where someone's brain simply shuts down because reality didn't do what they expected. I could hear Haley's breathing stop. Then her husband Nathan's voice in the background, low and sharp. "What did she just say?" I didn't wait. I ended the call, turned my phone face down, and slid the final page toward Margaret for her witness signature. And just like that, everything was done. If you had asked me a year earlier whether I ever imagined my own family would treat me like bad luck, I would have laughed. I would have said, "No, families fight, sure, but they don't turn on you like that." I was wrong. It happened on the most important day of my sister's life, her wedding day. And it started long before anyone said I do. A few weeks earlier, I woke up before dawn in my quiet suburb outside Knoxville. The house was still dark. My daughter was asleep upstairs, curled around her favorite stuffed rabbit. I stood in the bathroom mirror, adjusting the navy blue dress I'd bought just for that day. It was simple, knee-length, elegant without being flashy. It cost me $200. Money I honestly didn't have to spare. But I wanted to look right for Haley. I wanted to be a good sister. On the dresser sat an envelope. Inside it, $15,000. Every extra shift I'd picked up in the emergency room over the past year. Every night I'd come home so exhausted my hands shook. Every morning I dragged myself out of bed because I didn't have a choice. I'd saved all of it to give to Haley as a wedding gift. Next to the envelope was a small velvet box. Inside it, a silver necklace and matching earrings I'd picked out myself. Something delicate, something I imagined she'd wear on special days. I drove 3 hours the night before from Knoxville to Chattanooga so I could be there early and help with whatever she needed, because that's what I always did. The venue was beautiful. A historic ballroom with tall windows and white flowers everywhere. Staff rushed around adjusting chairs and centerpieces. Music floated faintly through the air. I found Haley's mother-in-law and offered to help. She smiled and thanked me. For a while, everything felt normal. I arranged roses, tied ribbons, chatted with cousins I hadn't seen in years. People told me I looked pretty, that I must be proud of my little sister. And I was. When the ceremony started, I stood near the back, holding a small bouquet Haley had asked me to carry. When she walked down the aisle in her white lace dress, I felt tears sting my eyes. She looked radiant. Nathan stood at the altar, smiling like he'd won the lottery. I clapped harder than anyone. I meant it. At the reception, I stood near the dessert table, holding a glass of champagne, watching Haley dance and laugh. I planned to give her the envelope later, maybe during a quiet moment, maybe when the music slowed. I wanted to tell her how proud I was, how much I loved her, how much my late husband Daniel would have loved seeing her like that. Then I saw Haley walking toward me. Her smile was gone. Her face flushed, her eyes hard. She stopped a few feet away and said, loud enough for people nearby to hear, "Get out, right now. Nathan doesn't want you here." I thought I misheard her. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice suddenly small. "You heard me," she snapped. "You need to leave. You're ruining everything." Behind her, our parents stood a few steps back. My mother's arms were crossed, her lips pressed tight. My father looked uncomfortable, but he didn't say a word. My mother did. "A single mom like you shouldn't bring bad luck to your sister's wedding," she said coldly. "Just go." The room didn't stop moving. Music kept playing. People kept laughing. But it felt like the air had been sucked out of my lungs. I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I nodded once, set my champagne glass down, picked up my purse, and walked out. My heels echoed against the marble floor, past smiling guests, past the photographer who looked confused, past a little flower girl staring up at me. No one said anything. Outside, the sunlight was blinding. I didn't cry until I was inside my car with the engine running and the air conditioning blasting cold air against my face. I sat there staring at the venue, still holding the envelope with $15,000, still holding the jewelry I'd never give her. On the drive home, the highway stretched dark and empty. I turned the radio off. Halfway home, I pulled onto the shoulder and just broke. I thought about Daniel. The call at 3 a.m, waking my daughter to tell her daddy wasn't coming home. By the time I pulled into my driveway in Knoxville, the porch light was still on. The house looked exactly the same, and yet everything felt different. That night, sitting on the porch swing with my grandfather's old ceramic mug in my hands, I remembered his voice. "This house is yours, Mackenzie. No one can touch it." At the time, I thought he was just being thoughtful. Now, I understood. And the next morning, when Haley called asking for the house papers like nothing had happened, that was when everything truly changed. The morning after the wedding, sunlight poured through the kitchen window like nothing bad had ever happened. That was the strangest part. The house was quiet. The coffee machine gurgled softly. My daughter was still asleep upstairs, clutching her stuffed rabbit the way she always did. For a moment, everything looked normal. I stood at the counter, spooning coffee grounds into the filter, trying to anchor myself in the routine. If I focused hard enough on small things, the smell of coffee, the hum of the refrigerator, the ticking clock on the wall, I thought maybe the weight in my chest would loosen. It didn't. My phone rang on the table. Haley. I stared at her name for a long second before answering. "Hey," I said. "Hi, sis," she replied, her tone artificially bright, like someone forcing cheer through clenched teeth. "I just wanted to check in. I hope you're okay after yesterday." I waited. "And, she continued. "Have you had a chance to look for those house papers?" My stomach twisted. I set the coffee mug down harder than I meant to. "You're calling about the house?" "Well, yeah," she said quickly. "Nathan and I were talking last night. We really need to sell it. We found this perfect place downtown, 3 bedrooms, great location. If we sell your house, we can pay off our credit cards and still have enough left to open the boutique." I sank into a chair at the kitchen table. "You're asking me," I said slowly, "to give you the house my grandparents left me, so you can buy a condo and start a business." "It's not like that," she said too fast. "You're 33, Mackenzie. You're raising a kid alone. That house is way too big for you. You'd be better off in something smaller, maybe closer to us. We could even help you find a place." I closed my eyes. The kitchen suddenly smelled bitter instead of warm. "Haley," I said, "Granddad and Grandma left that house to me. Alone. You know that." She sighed, the fake cheer slipping. "They're gone now. And honestly, it's not fair that one person gets everything. We're family. We should share." Something inside me hardened. "So yesterday," I said, "you told me I was bad luck and kicked me out of your wedding. And today you're calling to ask for the one thing that actually belongs to me." There was a pause. When she spoke again, her voice sharpened. "You're making this harder than it needs to be. I'm trying to be nice. Just send the papers." "Do you even hear yourself?" I asked. "You're being selfish," she snapped. "Nathan and I are starting our life together. We need this. You don't." I looked out the window at the yard where Daniel and I had planted a garden, where my daughter's swing set stood, slightly crooked but loved. "I'm not sending anything," I said. She laughed, short and incredulous. "Mom and Dad are going to be so disappointed." I ended the call. The silence that followed felt heavy, pressing down on my shoulders. I poured the coffee, hands shaking, spilling some over the rim. I sat there staring at the mug as the truth settled in. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was entitlement. And it didn't stop with Haley. The calls came all day. First Haley again, then my mother. Then my father, awkward and hesitant, letting my mother talk over him in the background. They framed it every way they could. "It's practical. It's for family. You're the older one. You're stronger. You don't really need it." At one point, my mother said, "After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us?" That was when something inside me snapped. Not loudly, not dramatically, but cleanly. I thought back over my life, working nights through nursing school while Haley got help with tuition, buying my own used car while she got a brand new SUV, paying my own bills while she got a little help every time she needed it. And still, I had shown up. Still, I had driven 3 hours to her wedding with $15,000 in my purse. Still, I had been called bad luck. That evening, after my daughter was asleep, I sat on the porch swing holding my grandfather's mug and replayed his words in my head. "This house is your safety net." I realized something then. They weren't asking for help. They were trying to erase my safety net. The next morning, I didn't answer any calls. Instead, I drove downtown. Margaret Hayes' office was small and unassuming, tucked between a bakery and a print shop. She greeted me with the same calm presence she always had and led me into her conference room. I told her everything. The wedding, the humiliation, the phone calls, the pressure. She listened without interrupting, writing notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, she set her pen down. "Mackenzie," she said, "the will is ironclad. The house is yours. No one can force you to sell." Relief washed through me, but it wasn't enough. "I don't just want it to be mine," I said. "I want it protected, forever." Margaret nodded slowly. "There is a way." She explained the idea of transferring the property into a charitable trust, a nonprofit that supports single mothers. I would retain lifetime occupancy rights. My daughter would always have a home, but no one could ever sell it, mortgage it, or take it. Once it was done, it was irreversible. I felt something loosen in my chest. "That's what I want," I said. "I don't want them holding this over me for the rest of my life." Margaret smiled softly. "Then let's do it." That afternoon, I read every page carefully. The legal language was dense, but the meaning was clear. Protection, boundaries, finality. When I signed my name, my hand didn't shake. For the first time since the wedding, I felt steady. That evening, I called Haley. She answered immediately. "Did you send the papers?" "No," I said calmly. "And I never will." There was silence. "I transferred the house to a nonprofit," I continued. "They own it now. I have lifetime occupancy. You'll never be able to touch it." Her reaction was explosive. Crying, shouting, accusations. "You're destroying everything!" she screamed. "I'm protecting my daughter," I replied. My mother jumped on the line. "How could you do this to your family?" "You already showed me how much family I had," I said. Nathan threatened court. I told him it was irrevocable. When the call ended, I blocked their numbers. I sat alone in the living room, heart pounding, not with fear, but relief. The house was safe. And for the first time, I understood something clearly. Sometimes the hardest decision isn't walking away. It's standing still and saying no. The silence after I blocked their numbers felt unnatural at first. For years, my phone had been a leash, buzzing, ringing, pulling me back into conversations I didn't want but felt obligated to have. Haley's emergencies, my mother's guilt-laced check-ins, my father's quiet sighs in the background. Now, there was nothing. No calls, no messages, just quiet. The first few days were the hardest. My body stayed tense, waiting for the next interruption, the next accusation, the next demand. I kept reaching for my phone out of habit, even though there was no one left to answer. But slowly, something unexpected happened. The quiet stopped feeling empty. It started feeling peaceful. Life didn't magically become easier overnight. I was still a single mother. I still worked long shifts at the hospital. I still packed lunches, helped with homework, and fell asleep exhausted more nights than not. But the emotional drain, the constant pressure to justify myself, was gone. That space changed everything. The nonprofit that now owned the house sent a representative a week later. Her name was Angela. She was warm, professional, and direct. We sat at my kitchen table going over paperwork while my daughter colored quietly beside us. "You'll continue living here as long as you need," Angela said. "The organization will cover property taxes and major repairs. You'll pay a small monthly fee, mostly symbolic." Symbolic. I liked that word. It reminded me that the house was no longer a bargaining chip. It was no longer leverage anyone could hold over my head. It was a shelter, a promise. As weeks passed, I noticed the ripple effects of my decisions spreading outward. At first, they came to me through distant channels, mutual acquaintances, extended family, whispered updates. Haley and Nathan's plans started unraveling almost immediately. Without the house sale, the downtown condo fell through. The boutique never opened. Credit card balances ballooned. Stress replaced excitement. They fought about money constantly, then about blame, then about everything else. By early summer, Haley moved back into my parents' house. Nathan stayed with friends. The marriage that had looked so perfect under white flowers and soft lighting couldn't survive without the financial fantasy holding it together. They filed for divorce less than a year after the wedding. No big announcement, no dramatic fallout, just paperwork. Consequences don't always arrive loudly. Sometimes they show up quietly and refuse to leave. My parents struggled too. They had always relied, subtly, comfortably, on Haley's help. With her finances collapsing, the support dried up. My father's health worsened. Medical bills piled up. They sold their house and moved into a small rental on the outskirts of town. I heard all of this through a cousin. I didn't intervene. Not out of cruelty, out of clarity. For the first time in my life, I let adults face the outcomes of their own choices. Meanwhile, something else was growing in the space they left behind. Purpose. The nonprofit invited me to volunteer. At first, I said yes out of gratitude. Then it became something deeper. I met women who reminded me of myself. Single mothers escaping abusive relationships, widows navigating loss, women who had been the responsible one for everyone else until there was nothing left for themselves. I helped them move into temporary housing. I showed them how to budget. Sometimes, I just listened. One woman cried at my kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug just like my grandfather's. "I didn't think anyone would choose me," she said. I understood that feeling better than I ever wanted to. Giving back didn't drain me, it grounded me. And slowly, I started to notice something else. I wasn't angry anymore. Not at Haley, not at my parents, not even at myself. The rage had burned itself out and left behind something steadier: acceptance. One evening, months later, I stood in the backyard watching my daughter run barefoot across the grass, laughing as she chased fireflies. The swing set creaked softly in the background. The house felt lighter, like it could breathe again. I realized then that the house had never just been about walls and property lines. It was about safety, about dignity, about refusing to be reduced to what others thought I deserved. That night, for the first time since Daniel died, I slept without waking up anxious. And I knew, deep in my bones, that the hardest part was behind me. 8 months have passed since the day I signed those papers in Margaret's office. Life didn't transform overnight into something perfect or easy. There were no dramatic turning points, no sudden windfalls, no fairy tale ending. But everything important changed. The house still looks the same from the outside. White siding, the big oak tree in the front yard, the porch swing that creaks when the wind picks up. But inside, the atmosphere is different. Lighter, quieter, free. The nonprofit handles the taxes and major repairs now. I pay a small monthly fee, just enough to remind me that the house is no longer something I have to defend. It exists beyond family pressure, beyond guilt, beyond manipulation. It's simply safe. My daughter is thriving. She laughs more, sleeps better. She doesn't hear tense phone conversations anymore. She doesn't see me cry in the kitchen late at night. She knows this house as a place of warmth, not conflict, and that matters more than anything. I still work long shifts at the hospital. I still come home exhausted, but the exhaustion is different now. It's physical, not emotional. I'm no longer carrying the invisible weight of everyone else's expectations. Volunteering with a nonprofit became a regular part of my life. On weekends, I help other single mothers move in and out of transitional housing. I teach budgeting workshops. I sit with women who feel like the world has decided they're expendable. Every time one of them says, "I thought I was the problem," something inside me softens, because I thought that too. I used to believe that being the strong one meant never saying no, that love meant sacrifice without limits, that family deserved endless forgiveness, no matter the cost. I don't believe that anymore. I believe boundaries are a form of love. I believe protecting yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. And I believe that sometimes the most compassionate thing you can do is let people experience the natural consequences of their choices. I don't hear from Haley. I don't hear from my parents. The silence is complete and intentional. I don't celebrate their struggles. I don't wish them harm. I simply accept that the relationship I thought we had never truly existed. And that acceptance has given me peace. Sometimes, late in the evening, I sit on the porch swing with my grandfather's old ceramic mug in my hands. I think about what he said all those years ago. "This house is your place to stand when the world tries to knock you down." He was right, but the house was never the point. The point was knowing I was allowed to stand. If you're watching this, and you're a woman who feels stretched too thin, overworked, underappreciated, or quietly taken advantage of by the people who should protect you, hear this. You are not difficult for having limits. You are not selfish for protecting what's yours. You are not bad luck because life hit you hard. Your worth isn't measured by how much you give away. It's measured by how much you respect yourself. Sometimes choosing yourself doesn't look loud or dramatic. Sometimes it looks like paperwork, silence, distance. And sometimes that quiet choice changes everything. I chose to protect what was mine, and in doing so, I finally found freedom. Thank you for listening to my story.